So right now, the next thing that happens is, because this file is an After Effects file, or rather it's coming from Photoshop, I'll just show you something quickly. If you go back to Photoshop image size, you will see the size of the file is, the dimensions of the file rather is 4.6k pixels by 5.7k pixels, right? When you come here and maybe you do right click composition settings, you see, so literally this thing is working with your files. Now, typically what I want to do is I try to, because if you're working with a large dimension in After Effects, it's going to drag your system, especially if your system is not a high-end system. And so I want to reduce the composition size. But before I do that, if I try to do it manually, this resizing these whole files will be a mess. So what I need to do now is first of all, set up null objects. So null objects are like objects you can parent files to or layers to, so that if you move that null, let me just do it again. Like I said, this is not an After Effects tutorial. This is a process tutorial. So maybe what can also happen is when you hear me call certain names or certain tools, you can just go and look up YouTube to see more about those tools or those processes, so you can understand better what I'm doing. But it's expected you should know about this. So a null object, basically to add any, so you can add different kinds of layers here. So you could just go to a blank spot and just right click new. You can add text, solid, all these things are items you can add. So I want to do null object, right? So I'll first do a demo of what a null object, how a null object works. So let's put it this way. Let's say, let me use, okay, let me not even go so far. So now I'm going to increase the size. Let me just drag this down. I'm going to increase the size of my null object. I'm going to put it here for a reason. Now, watch this. This is the Aramanda logo. I can move this around. This is Easter. I can move it around on its own, right? But now, watch what happens if I drag this parent. So this thread looking thing, this spiral looking thing means parent pick. So if I drag it to the null object, so what I'm saying now is that, and you can see it's now showing that, oh, Aramanda logo is now linked to null1 as the parent. So let me show you what happens now. Let me undo this and show you what happens when I move the parent, the null alone. You see nothing is happening, right? But now when I link Aramanda to it, if I move the logo, the null, you see the logo now follows. If I link Christian to it and move the null, you see now, so basically the null is now the parent controlling anything I connect with. If I decide that, oh, I want to rotate, you see, based on where the pivot point of the arc of the null object is, it's going to rotate everything connected to it. If I also do scale, so basically anything that is parented to this null object now is going to be affected by whatever animation I apply on that null object. All right, so it's a great way, and guess what? You can still come and do individual animations on the assets attached to it. So it's a great way to move stuff about. And for example, it's also useful to where, let's say, I'm just going to jump ahead of myself. Let's say I wanted to do an animation where this guy is supposed to move from here to here, right? And your director or the client says, oh yeah, that's nice, I like the motion, but can we move it to the right instead? If you had already just, instead of, if you come here now, for example, to want to move it to the right, you see, it will still keep, it will now literally change the keyframe, which is not what you probably want to do. So let's say you like the animation and you just want to move it to the right, like you want it to do the same motion in the same direction, but you want to just change where the logo is. You could just come now that you've parented the logo. Let me remove Christian from it. And so if you come here and move the logo here with the null, what will happen when we play? You see, the animation we did is still there, but with the null object, you can move it and not destroy your animation. So this is a very good tool for moving stuff without spoiling your animation, or moving stuff around without spoiling your keyframes, and also used to add additional layer of animation to objects you already have, or to batch move stuff without stress.